All right, we are at the Village Council special meeting, August 27th. We are at 7:01 p.m. and we will start with roll call. Councilperson McNamara.
Present.
Councilperson Koss.
Present.
Councilperson Passion.
Here.
Council President Camera.
Here.
Councilperson Grant.
Here.
And Councilperson Martin.
Here.
All right, and now we have a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to, or actually, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll let you say all your stuff for the conditional use permit hearing for Phantom Fireworks.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we were here 13 days ago for recommending body decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They recommended disapproval up to council. That was considered a public hearing. Everything was taken under oath. All of the documents submitted by the applicant are considered part of the record. All of the emails received by the Planning and Zoning Commission, whether for or against the fireworks or the conditional use permit, is considered part of the record, and that record is frankly considered ongoing. I know several members of council actually sit on the Planning Commission, whether they be voting members or not, so they have all heard sort of the pros and cons and the staff reports and the applicant presentation. We've talked with the applicant and Eric's going to, frankly, briefly summarize the staff report, also bring up the conditions that were sort of discussed last time at the Planning and Zoning Commission, which had grown from, I believe, what staff originally suggested was 3 to 8. And then the applicant is going to mainly tailor their presentation tonight towards some of the finer point concerns that they heard at the Planning Commission meeting. And so in lieu of that, everyone that had made comments, all public comments previously are considered part of the record. That will be so going forward. I know council has a 30-minute limit on public comment to 3 minutes per person, so that, I don't think we'll hold the hard at 30, but it would be about 10 people in 3 minutes. And if anyone has anything new to say or anything germane to the topic, certainly please bring that up to council so that they can consider it and they can question the applicant about it after your comment. That's all I have.
All right, Eric, do you want to start with staff?
Yes.
Our staff is considered village staff, so village staff would consist of either Jesse or Eric. They would be our village staff. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Essentially, for those of you that were present, I think most of the council was also in the audience or at the hearing itself on the dais at the August 14th meeting. I will quickly summarize this. This is the same exact report that I sent to everyone already. Essentially, the items that staff recommended approval on are based on several conditions of our conditional use code at this time. And so those are all based on 1232.12c. And so the basic one is the proposed use of conditional use in the zoning district after the development standards of the zoning code are met. This is affirmative. And so this, as we have, as I stated before, Phantom Fireworks is a retail store engaged in selling merchandise for personal or household consumption, which is allowed within the neighborhood commercial district. Under the current code, it is a conditional use. All right, the second one, proposed use is compatible with adjacent land use, adjacent zoning appropriate plans for the area. And again, as I stated in the earlier meeting, proposed use is a type of retail store selling merchandise for personal household consumption is compatible with adjacent land use, adjacent zoning and appropriate plans for the area. As an example, a retail store along heavily traveled arterial street, Woodland Avenue. Number 3, the proposed use will not adversely impact access, traffic flow, and other public facilities and services. And essentially, to sum this up, we believe it could. And so, to that end, and because this also affects some other items from convenience and comfort, which will follow this particular point, their TIS was done. There were a number of recommendations in the traffic impact study. And as you'll see coming up, we have stipulated that as long as those are implemented, along with several other conditions to be noted here, we believe that they can mitigate potential adverse impact on the access, traffic flow, and other public facilities and services. The proposed use will not result in destruction, loss, damage, or natural scenic or historic feature. That is correct. We will not do that. And there are several little, 6 little sub-items, fifth conditional item to consider under the code, which is the proposed use will not adversely affect public health, safety, convenience, common prosperity, and general welfare. And as I will restate here, the record adverse means it's working against you. And so, but specifically, although it has been stated by the public in the last meeting, these items specifically have to do with the use at this location itself, not with the end use of the fireworks. Just like liquor, weed, or any other item that you can buy in a store, herbicide, and so forth, people can use them incorrectly, illegally, or otherwise, and that is not the fault of a legally operated retail store, whether it's Home Depot, Phantom, or a liquor store. So in this case, health, as long as they're following the proper health codes, just as in the restaurant, whether any other particular user, we don't find any issues with the health. We don't have any use that is going to ill affect the health of customers and the public. Safety, they're a unique retail store and they have particular code requirements and stipulations under the state of Ohio that are season. And as I noted in this particular point, we defer to this decision if it passes the state fire marshal and state of Ohio's code requirements to operate safely. Convenience and comfort, as I noticed here, this is related to the other item of traffic above. There will be some potentially adverse effect conditions regarding the traffic. And again, that goes to conditions which will state, again, for the record underneath, as to mitigate those particular items. Staff felt that prosperity is met, as we would like to have an operating professional retail establishment at that location. And so to reduce income tax, as well as not leave the property vacant and disrepair, and we feel that corporate entity will do this fine. General welfare refers to everything kind of surrounding it, and we don't feel it's going to adversely affect by this retail use. Again, only when traffic is in a negative effect will we see a particular effect on general welfare. And again, we'll look to mitigate those as we will recommend here below. 3 recommendations that we talked about that staff recommended were obviously everything under number 3 from the traffic impact study implemented by Phantom Fireworks. And number 2, the Phantom Fireworks committed to hire a special videographer during their hours of operations at least 15 days prior to July 4th each year to be stationed at the intersection of Jordan Road and Cleveland Avenue in order to assist the resident in getting into and out of the street during what is anticipated to be a heavy traffic period. And 3, that Phantom Fireworks commit to meeting with village administration after July 4th on an annual basis to go over observed issues and problems and formulate solutions to those issues before the next busy season. At the meeting, several items were added. I apologize for the dark background. We included those first 3 again. We also added another, from the discussion Phantom and the board at that time, we recommended a second special duty officer to be positioned on Jordan just east of the entrance to Phantom to prevent wrong way traffic for people who are confused or any other folks from this busy traffic period to wander into the Jordan area so that they can be properly redirected and to prevent any illegal parking, which of course, as I noted in that meeting, the council has the ability to put up temporary no parking along that whole stretch with signage along with the officer to mitigate any particular traffic effects. Moving on down, there was a slight change in language under number 3, which was that Phantom Fireworks initiates an annual meeting with the village administration after July 4th to discuss observed issue problems for the solutions before the next busy season. So we just wanted to put a note on that. That was what was recommended after the P&Z session. Number 4, Phantom Fireworks shall limit its hours of operations from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. except from June 19th to July 4th, and they operate from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on the weeknights and from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday nights, and when July 3rd falls on a weekday. Number 5, the Phantom Fireworks shall coordinate off-site parking for employees during the 15 days prior to the 4th of July each year and shall update the village as to those arrangements related to the Memorial Day of each year. Number 6, Phantom shall install signage on site advising that vehicular exits onto Jordan Road is prohibited. We recommended multi-languages, since we've got several different communities up and around Cleveland. 7, Phantom Fireworks shall install parking parking bollards and I was still protecting these vehicular traffic. I think they were agreeable, as that was pretty much standard practice. Number 8, Phantom Fireworks shall comply with all applicable property maintenance code provisions. And that's what we have at this point in time.
Mayor, I think like one thing, although Eric didn't testify as to anything new, so I'm not worried about it. Anyone, and I know we're limited to roughly 10 people in that 30-minute window or however many, but if at any point you're planning or hope to speak tonight, including the applicant but not counsel, I'd have you stand and swear to testify truthfully. Thank you all. If you swear to testify truthfully and accurately to the best of your ability, so help you God. Thank you.
Do you want the microphone?
I think they have one. You guys have microphones?
Yeah, you ready for all? No, just wait.
Mary, ready for the applicant?
Go for it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get my clock ready for
Oh, perfect.
my 2 separate clocks.
Good evening. I think I got this one right here. You guys can hear me okay? All right. Again, my name is Stephen Funk. I'm a land use and zoning attorney at Rensselaer and Andrews. Here to represent Phantom Fireworks Showroom LLC, which is going to be the operator of this facility. They're also a corporate affiliate of the B.J. Allen Company, which is the parent that would be owning the property. And I want to introduce you. I'm here with, I'm just going to do it based on what I have on my list. So Jack Abel, you can raise your hand. He's Director of Development for the Phantom Fireworks. Daniel Pert, who is also with Phantom Fireworks. Greg Smith, who is the Safety and Compliance Director, and as part of the evidence we submitted at the last hearing, we submitted his CV. He's got fairly extensive background in the safety and compliance arena for fireworks that is long, well before he began working for Phantom Fireworks. So he's kind of one of the leading experts in the field in this area, and that's why we submitted his CV. Patrick Lanke, who is with Strollo Associates, who prepared the building plans and the site plan and the landscaping plans that we submitted. And then Jennifer Howdyshell, who is traffic engineer at MS Consultants, who worked on the traffic study. So I'm going to try to avoid repeating what we talked about last week. I don't know if you could just bring up the site plan real quick.
Sure.
Maybe just the landscaping plan would be sufficient. So while we're doing that, let me just emphasize that this is the former GFS property that's located on Cleveland Avenue, at 5400 Cleveland Avenue. And we're not proposing to do any new construction. It's basically utilizing the existing building that is there, but obviously giving it a rehab in terms of improving its front, redesigning or paving and striping the parking lot, and utilizing the existing entrances, with the exception that we are going to remove one of the entrances on Jordan Road and make the other one an entry only. And that's probably done, not really because of the traffic study, but we just felt that that would be something that would be helpful to the village with some of the concerns that were raised about the impact on Jordan Road. We also are going to be adding we're going to preserve all of the existing trees that are there, so we're not removing any trees, but we'll be adding some additional landscaping along the front of Cleveland Avenue. So I think that if you drive by that store today, you'd see that the dilapidated old building. We're going to make it operational and much better, more attractive location than you would currently see today. But functionally, it is a consumer retail store. So it's not going to operate really any differently than any other retail store. In fact, what our traffic study shows is that the number of cars that would be going there would be substantially less than you would see in a grocery store. So it's going to be relatively quiet. Now, I know that there are concerns about what happens during the week or two before the 4th of July, and I want to address that with a little bit more detail, but I want to emphasize that this functionally is going to operate no differently than a retail store. One of the things, the reason why I say that is because we do take the position that it's a permitted use, and I submitted a letter that explains that legally. So I just wanted to put that on the record that continue to believe that this is a permitted use. We also had taken the position that the original application that we submitted on September 28th, 2023, should have been granted based upon the zoning ordinances that were in effect at that time. So I raised both of those issues because I just wanted to not waive anything for purposes of today. But in discussing it over with the village, we did agree to go through the conditional use process without waiving any of our rights. And so we have submitted a conditional use plan. As part of that, we did do a comprehensive traffic study. And I think that one of the things I want to make clear about the traffic study is that that was done based upon a methodology that was approved in advance by the City of Columbus and by the village. There is a standard methodology that is followed. It looks at what time of day you're supposed to look at, what intersections you're supposed to study, and that was all agreed on in advance before the traffic study was done. So the traffic study that was completed by MS Consultants is provided to you, and it was based upon that methodology. Now, the Planning Commission's recommendation appeared to be based really primarily on two concerns that they had. The first one went to the product itself. And I think that there's still a misconception about the product itself. This is a consumer grade, which is the lowest grade of fireworks that are available. Throughout the report the Planning Commission wrote, they refer to it as being highly flammable. This is not a highly flammable product. And I just thought maybe I could ask Greg to just clarify that for the record. Greg, if you don't mind, just can you explain the difference between the consumer grade fireworks versus the display fireworks that you see, the professional fireworks that you would see if you went to, say, the downtown Columbus fireworks?
Good evening. Large professional display fireworks is a starting point that you all see. Those are very much subject to being problematic because of the size and because they're for professional use. They do contain a lot more product in them that could potentially explode or mass detonate. Consumer fireworks, on the other side, is at the absolute lowest end of the scale, and it meets CPSC requirements for a consumable good. They're not allowed to explode. They're allowed to burn and combust. But again, there's no exposure to these type of fireworks.
And when you hear the words highly flammable, what do you think of?
Highly flammable is going to be defined in the Ohio Fire Code. It's going to be a class 1 combustible like gasoline, propane, thinners, paints, any of those type, aerosols, stuff like that.
And can you just explain, since you're up, I'll just have you finish, explain in terms of these products themselves can't catch fire, but if they were to catch fire, what would happen?
Well, if they're going to catch fire, like any other item that could be considered flammable, like cardboard, paper, anything, it's going to burn. It's going to burn normally. These are a little bit more exciting because of the nature of the product, but it is very well defined that these are packaged as per DOT, for transportation. They're very concealed. There's no exposure to any composition or powder or anything like that. They're all confined.
And in terms of this particular store, what is the fire suppression system that will be installed?
Well, the fire suppression system is going to be the early suppression, fast response, ESFR. That's the state-of-the-art, as good as it gets. This type of fire system is next to what's called a water deluge, where it's going to get a massive amount of water put on it, which is going to keep everything within the footprint of that store. There's not going to be any detonation or mass explosions ever with these products, even without the suppression system. It's been proven through much testing that I've been exposed to over the years. So yeah, the fire suppression system is going to be way above and beyond, actually. FAM is good at doing that, going a little bit extra mile to make sure that everything is all good at that.
Okay, and I think it's indicated, the case law, and I presented a letter to your law director that I'd just like to introduce it to the record. In general, you can see different things. It's a general principle of zoning law that essentially if you determine that a particular use is either permitted use or conditional use within a particular zoning district, then it would violate Ohio law to then say, well, we're not going to allow your particular use because we don't like the use. The council's already determined that fireworks will be, whether it be permitted or conditionally permitted within the commercial zoning district. So in this role that you're serving today, you are serving in more of an administrative capacity in terms of applying existing law, as opposed to determining that you now change your mind and you don't want fireworks in the village. So at this point in time, you know, our belief is that this is permitted use, but even if it was conditional use, permitted use, the law would say that that you can't deny it just because you're now opposed to having a fireworks store in the village. The other concern that was raised is primarily based on traffic. And that's why we did the traffic study that shows that the volume of traffic is going to be substantially lower than the typical grocery store, and is not going to change the level of service on Cleveland Avenue. So I think the concern here about the traffic is based upon the week or two before the 4th of July. And with respect to that, I think there's just a general misconception about what that volume of traffic is going to be. This is not going to be a huge number of cars. What I think we testified to at the last hearing is that the current parking lot of 60, which allows for 65 parking, is going to be more than ample parking, obviously more than ample for the regular normal times, but even in the busiest time, which would be basically July 1st and July 4th, it's still going to be ample room for traffic. And since the last hearing, we did go back and look at, to confirm up, what was the data that showed at the Grove City store. Now, we have the sales, we did look at the sales records from the time period of 2 weeks before the 4th of July, and what it basically would show is that we are very confident that this is not going to be volumes that, in other words, it's going to be very unlikely that the parking lot will be actually full, and if it is close to full, then we're going to have traffic people there to help manage that. And based upon the volumes that we looked at for the grocery store, the number of sales transactions per hour during the week of June 21st through June 27th were actually far, far fewer than 65 transactions per hour. We generally estimate that somebody that would come to a store is only going to be there, say, 20 to 25 minutes. So if you multiply that by 2, even if you had 130 transactions per hour, that would be more than enough for 65 spaces. And of course, Grove City, we believe, would be busier than this store, and that you might have more than one person in a car that would be doing more than one transaction. So the volumes we don't think are actually going to be anywhere close to 65 in the week of June 21st and June 27th. At the Grove City store, what we did see was an increase in sales volume from June 28th through July 4th. But even during those periods, it's only during certain hours of the day, so it's not like it's all day long. And on those, with respect to those, they were still far less than 100 transactions per hour. I think, Dan, you testified that you thought that it was going to be less than 100 transactions per hour, even during the business season. But I thought maybe you could just clarify kind of what the data that we were able to look at with regard to the Grove City store. What generally did you see even the week of June 28th through July 4th?
Sure. So in conclusion, what we found is that there were only 6 days where we averaged more than 65 transactions per hour. And naturally that ended on the 4th and the 6th days. And that was based on our Grove City showroom, which you mentioned, and for the benefit of anyone in the room that's not familiar with Grove City, we are wrapped right in the center of that Stringtown Road shopping district, which is a lively, commercialized and busy shopping district here. So that's the comparison we're using here, and certainly a different commercial area than we're talking about in Cleveland Avenue.
And in terms of the number of times it was above 100, generally when would that period have been? Or if you say 65 times 2, over 130 even.
Yeah, so basically the way that we looked at this from Grove City is based on the transactions from that showroom, there would be roughly 3 to I think 4 hours on July 4th, where we would average at or just over 130 transactions per hour, which is the number of parking spaces that we have times 2.
Okay. And so I raise all that primarily because I think there is a misconception about the traffic, and I think that what one of the conditions I think that the village was proposing that we would have a person there to regulate traffic on Cleveland Avenue, every hour of every day for 15 days. And that is probably a little bit of an overkill and probably not necessary. We actually have been in this business for, let's see, over 45 years, it's 1977. And we have 90 stores, and it's in our interest to allow people to not have a traffic issue and actually allow people in and out of the stores during really just those few days, July 1st through the 4th. So we would intend to have an additional, first of all, we just explained, under Ohio law, we have to have a security guard present at the store for 14 days prior to July 4th and 4 days after July 4th. So we will have a security guard there. I think the condition that was suggested was that we would have an additional security guard who would essentially be doing traffic management for that same period of time. We believe that the second person would be unnecessary, except for what we were proposing would be that for the days of July 1st through the 4th, we would have that person there. And we could also have that person there on the weekend before the 4th of July for purposes of managing it during what we anticipate to be busy hours, which are generally between noon and 5 p.m. On those, what our data showed in terms of July, the weekend before this past July 4th. We think that's going to provide more than level security, but what we'd be willing to do also is to sit down with your village police force either prior to July 4th or even frankly anytime that would be convenient for you, and kind of walk through that with them to make sure that they were in agreement. We do not want in any way to tax the village police force, but we're doing this primarily out of our own interest, to trying to make sure that we've got adequate people there for that purpose. And the other thing that would do is that we'd also make sure that people are following the instructions in regards to making sure all everybody's coming in off Cleveland Avenue and exiting off Cleveland Avenue and not off of Jordan. So that was one of the modifications that we would propose, and essentially a second traffic officer for 6 days from June 29th to July 4th. And then after the 4th, we could also sit down and talk about whether that needs to be modified or in any way. We want to be a good partner with the village. We also, at the same time, though, we don't think it's necessary to have somebody there all day long, just kind of twiddling their thumbs when they're not really ultimately needed. Generally, a security guard like that is going to cost about $100 per hour. And he said, we're always going to have somebody there, so if he said there are already issues that arise, they will be there. The question really is when you need a second person. The other request that we wanted to make was with regard to, I'm sorry, let me just look real quick at your conditions. Oh, in terms of the hours of operation, so we're fine with the restrictions on the hour of operation, but in terms of, from our past experience, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., and right now you have it on Friday and Saturday nights, and when July 3rd falls on a weekday. We think it'll work better if we do that the weekend before and then July 1st through the 4th. Those would be really the core days when we want to be able to stay open until 11. And part of that is because, from our experience, by stretching it out and giving people, particularly on weekdays, the opportunity to come after work and things like that, you actually make it you expand the traffic out over a long period of time. I don't know if you want to add anything to that at all, or nothing.
It's absolutely accurate, yes.
Okay. And then the last thing is on the parking bollards, I just wanted to clarify, those are going to be located, the entrances, so all the entrances to the building and the exits from the building will have the parking bollards in front. It's not going to surround the entire building. It's a concrete building, but we do put the parking bollards in front of essentially the doors in and out of the building, so that nobody would be able to drive into the building itself. Patrick, do you want to clarify that, how that works?
Basically, with the bollards that we install, any opportunity in which a vehicle could go crashing into the building, the most susceptible areas, like your glass areas that you see in a little lady that goes through the bank or whatever the case is, that's our standard protocol to install those bollards right around those entrances and exits. But regular block walls, we don't put them in because the block itself is sufficient to stop a car.
And then, Patrick, I wanted you to clarify for the record, you drew a 60-foot distance around the building structure that is the dashed line you see there that actually goes over into the adjacent property. Can you explain what that dashed line is there for to show?
Absolutely. As we had spoke at the conditional use, this facility is regulated by many different entities. The NFPA, the Ohio Fire Code, the Ohio Building Code. During the Ohio Fire Code, one of the things they ask us to do is look at permanent structures outside of the building. So not only are we looking at inside the building for safety reasons, we're looking at outside of the building. So they actually ask us to look at the 60-foot barrier around for permanent structures. When I say permanent structures, this is for houses, but not necessarily sheds. At the same time, this does not preclude the adjacent property owners from building or expanding that property. It's at the time that we're doing this renovation and evaluations.
So I just want to explain that that is not a building setback requirement. In other words, that information is there for purposes of, they just want to know what permanent structures are located within 60 feet of the building. But it does not, it's not a restriction on the setback from the building, from the property line, and it particularly does not impose any restrictions, zero restrictions on the adjacent property owner. They are still free to build whatever they want on their property, subject to whatever village setbacks there may be. So if they want to build a shed there, that they can do that, whatever they want to do with their property, they're not restricted in any way by either the fire code or by the state fire marshal or anything like that. So the only restriction they would have would be whatever existing restriction there is now in the village zoning code. So I hope that clarifies that issue, but we can certainly answer any questions about that. And so with that, we would ask that you approve our conditional use permit, as well as subject to the conditions as I modified them, and we'd ask you to consider those modifications. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to, thank you guys. We're going to move to citizen comments. It's a little after 7:30 right now, so we can kind of keep track of this 30 minutes because I failed a couple times last time. So we're going to try this again. Sue, is it Craig Lowe? You're up first.
I'm to Pam.
Is there a list that you need to sign out? Because I
Yeah.
didn't speak at the last meeting.
There's a list. There's a list. It's 3 minutes, 30 minutes total. So I'm not. I haven't.
Well, put me down. But I'd like to make sure that the people that haven't spoken yet get a chance to speak.
I think quite a few of these people have spoken before, so that's going to be up to you to fight them for it.
Well, I think like the bond director had said earlier is that it's part of the record that they spoke. So I believe if you're going to pick people, it ought to be the people that haven't had a chance to speak yet.
Let's go through the first
We're gonna go in order.
few and see where we are, and then if you want to try to talk over. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, maybe some of the people that haven't spoke will not use the full 3 minutes.
Okay.
So let's get through these the best we can.
Am I up?
Yes.
I think, are we going to go in order?
No, she's getting her time to her.
Okay, all right.
So are you using additional time and running all of yours together, or are you just,
I'm hoping not, no.
because you're, okay. Okay, do you want to do the 3 and I'll do the 30? Because I think I can just pause it each time. So you do 3.
Before I begin, I have a request. So much good information has been presented by both sides. I would like it posted on the website, what Eric's what he said that was very fast and small print, and possibly even what Phantom Fireworks has indicated. That would be a great step towards transparency. That's just a request. And then I can do.
I will see if we can just, Barb is right here. He has a whole bunch of papers that we've sent out to council. They're all public records, so
Yeah, we'll post.
we'll see if we can post that whole thing. We will then add what we were given today, and we'll see if we can get that uploaded.
Can't be part of our 30 minutes.
No, I haven't started. I will not start it until she starts talking.
Hello, my name is Pamela Park Curry. I live at 2559 Lakewood Drive. And I am going to speak about things that I did not speak about before. This approval with conditions is all about the impact of Phantom Fireworks on our quality of life. Every zoning ordinance we have tries to maintain that quality, but not always successful. So council is considering approving conditions. What conditions can be made to lessen the undesirable effects on Jordan Road, Wildwood Road, and the surrounding areas? We know that it sounds like about 335 days or so out of the year, there will be no problem with traffic and parking. It's going to be the other 30 plus days when sales are their highest and traffic and parking will indeed be undesirable. If Phantom Fireworks demands a store in the village, we can maintain some quality of life under the following conditions. 1, Phantom Fireworks, and they may not be too hard since there are not going to be very many cars, will monitor their parking lot at all times, especially during high volume sales times. When the parking lot is full, customers will be rerouted by the police officer or an employee to Northland Plaza where parking is plentiful. The Phantom shuttle can pick them up and then bring them back to the store. Many venues do this at high volume times, so it's not unusual. We want to do things on our side, to post a sign at the west end of Jordan Road explaining that Phantom Fireworks is not to park in residential areas. And I would encourage council to make Jordan Road and Wildwood Road parking on that street by parking permit only. And then we will give you lots of parking permits for you, your friends, your visitors, but not to just anyone. Minerva Park will also encourage the Yasmin shopping lot to also say to have Yasmin customer parking only. Ohio Revised Code says no person under 18 years of age shall touch or possess fireworks on a licensed premises without the consent of the licensee. Another condition, Phantom Fireworks, as the licensee, will not give permission for any person under 18 years of age to touch or possess fireworks on the premises. I don't know of any 13 or 12-year-old boy that wouldn't go in there and just want to touch fireworks all over the place. Shouldn't happen. And condition 3, I have shopped at the GFS store, and I don't know how they figure out what the maximum capacity is, and I don't know if there's more than one door in and out. But I would like to establish that the maximum capacity is the number of people who can be in the store and evacuate very safely and quickly, and that's including wheelchair users, and get out of the store in just minutes, should anything happen.
Do you want to go to your next 3?
I think I'm in good shape. Really, just consider the residents on Jordan Road, and thank you all for your comments.
Just, you don't get to time.
We're not sharing time.
Yeah,
This is,
just to
okay.
get the most voices out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next we have Denise.
My name is Denise Morrison, 2698 Wildwood Road. With regards to the last hearing, I just want to say I believe it was not only irresponsible to joke around and make comments like, my employees, let's hope that they don't come to work not sober. Not only was that rude and disrespectful to the residents and the community, but your interactions maybe with the mayor, the planner, and the law director may be that way. However, this makes us question further whether you're a good fit for our community. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So what I want to say is this is wrong. Voting on this today would be considered unacceptable conduct, considering the fact that there are no facts. What are the details? From the beginning. From Phantom, I've asked, did you do a commercial real estate search? Did you hire somebody? And when? Who did you use? How long was the search? Was this before or after the approval of fireworks code allowing residents to shoot off fireworks on certain days? I asked. You did not answer. Planning and zoning and council should not be comfortable with the lack of information we have to vote on this. We need an account of details and facts to include dates and conversations from all parties. Phantom, the planner, the law director, to name a few. With this in mind, voting on this today would continue to give the appearance of impropriety. There are already questions and concerns. Mind you, I am still waiting on my public records request for this information. Why is it being withheld? Or is it that there are no records and documents? Other than what Phantom said at the hearing about applying for a conditional use permit in and around August of 2023, the only other information available, or that I have, is that they contacted Mr. Fisher in August as well. However, in what context? This is an ongoing issue, this lack of transparency. Which will be the downfall of our community and our government. Finally, I wish to propose a postponement of this vote based on the fact that there are no facts in the appearance of impropriety.
All right, Kathy Williams.
I don't know, where are you trying to plan?
Which is you.
Oh. I am recovering from eye surgery, and Lori Santilli Howard has been nice enough to read my comments. Lori's I'm not Lynn Eisentraut, but I'm reading this for her. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Although I am puzzled why we are even here at this date. I understand that there were conversations between at least 2 village officials and the Phantom Fireworks Group in 2023. The former GFS building at 5400 Cleveland Avenue changed hands in February of 2024. The then sitting council was not aware of these conversations until later. It would have been advantageous to all concerned if the village had held a public hearing before the one held August 14, 2024. Why? To take the pulse of the community. I expect the attendance would have been as massive as the August 14th meeting. The Phantom Fireworks Group would have seen that a high-risk business of this type is unwelcome and may have wisely decided to walk away from purchasing the GFS building. I am a former 4-term mayor, served on council for more than 7 years, 2 of those as council president. I served on the Minerva Park Community Association for many years as well, serving 2 or 3 times as president. I love Minerva Park. I am confident that the majority of the people in this room do not want a business that sells incendiary merchandise. Did I say that right? You did. I am asking you to remember the oath you took when you were seated on council. You promised to recognize your responsibilities to promote the safety, well-being, and peace of mind of your neighbors, your friends, and your families. Please do your job and do not approve the conditional use permit that Phantom Fireworks has applied for.
Justin. At the very end, do you want us to go and address half of these? Because there's a lot of misinformation already, or do we just?
Well, it's entirely up to you. The applicant has a chance to you'll ask questions of the applicant, they can rebut the public comment, that's their right.
Okay.
And certainly, you are all the elected officials, you can say what you like.
Okay. Now we have Lori Howard.
Okay, names after that?
I'm gonna pass to.
Okay, next we have Sarah Hall.
Good evening. For the record, Colonel Sarah Hall, United States Air Force retired, B-52 radar navigator instructor. I'll translate that into civilianese. I drop bombs and I'm trained in explosives. I wish to state for the record, as the trustee of the Joanne H. Hall Trust, who owns the home at 2650 Jordan Road, also daughter of Dr. Daniel Hall, who resides there, that we in no way, shape, or form support the granting of this permit, either conditional or otherwise, due to safety concerns that have not been addressed. It is unsafe for this area, and I strongly recommend against it. The rest of my time, I yield to those who have not spoken.
Jean McCall.
Well, actually, I will go ahead and do it because I think I can do it quickly. I just, in the last meeting, there was great
Hold on,
to do.
Jean, introduce
Oh, I'm
yourself.
sorry. Jean Call, 5361 Park Lane Drive, off of Jordan. So there was great to do at the last meeting about the proximity of the residential property being right there next to the Grove City location. Au contraire. They have a vast parking lot. I decided to take a visit myself. And they have a vast parking lot and a 3-lane road to the to the other side of the road where the condo properties are. Then there's a very tall earthen berm with tall conifers planted close together on top of the berm. The berm is, when I was standing on the residence side, 20 feet up. It was very, I have pictures, if you'd like to see them. Then the condos are built on property that's lower than the street. I paced it off. It was 150 steps from the front of the Phantom building to the curb across the street. The 3-lane road ends in a large cul-de-sac big enough for a semi to turn in easily. Let's compare it to GFS. 15 steps to the residential property from the back of the storage area of the building. There's a flimsy wooden fence built at a lower elevation that wouldn't stop a walnut from falling from a tree. It's not exactly straight up and down. So the reason why I was making a point about the steps is it is just so incredible. Oh, the back of GFS is what is closest to the residential house. The front of the building in Grove City is what I had measured. So it's even more vulnerable to be, I think, towards the back where everything is being stored and delivered than it is in the retail area. And so in your plan, nice picture, but and it's always nice to have pretty landscaping out front with native plants. But I really think something should be done at the back of the building that will give the Knots some sense of security that at least you tried to not blow them up. Thanks.
All right, next we have Ed.
I decline.
Okay. Beth McFarland.
Hello, my name is Beth McFarland. I live at 2604 Wildwood Road, and I am here in my capacity as a resident, and I'm also a licensed architect, and I've been practiced in the profession for over 30 years, and I have designed and permitted many retail spaces, many retail stores. And I would just like to address that we keep saying that this is a retail establishment, they're selling consumer goods, they're going to be taking them home for their personal use, all true. However, there are some things, in my entire career, I've never had to do any of these items in any retail store that I've ever permitted, and I would say that's probably, close to 100 in my lifetime, or in my career as an architect. So anyway, some of the items I'd like to point out that they have said that they do in their store is some of the safety measures they have in place, or they have this early suppression system, which is close to a deluge system, which is commendable. That's great. It's going to, put out any fires. They have bollards around the entrances to the building. They have, they're required by Ohio code, Ohio law, to have security in place 15 days prior and 4 days after the 4th of July. They also have the 60-foot buffer around the building, which is also a requirement of the fire code. So I just look at that and I say, this is not a benign use. If you have all these other conditions that the fire code and all these other Ohio revised code have put in place, then this is not your ordinary dog grooming store, barber, thrift store, retail store. It is a very special use. And with that, also with the conditional use, on Planning and Zoning Committee, when we were discussing the conditional use and changing it from neighborhood community, resident commercial to conditional use, one of the reasons that was brought up for changing it from the previous code to the new code was that we were told that it would allow us to, if someone put in an application for a business, it would allow us to vote on it and have a hearing about it and see if it fit within our community. And that's the process that we're going through right now. And, but I feel that there's now this fear-mongering about, they're going to take us and sue us and all of this. And it's like, the people who wrote the zoning code, they're now the ones saying to watch out, we're going to get sued over this. Why did they not put in things to prevent these loopholes? Why wasn't it more stringent so that if we voted and disapproved it, then why isn't that being followed in? Because that's the voice of the people in the community. And, so I think with that, I'm just strongly recommending that we do not approve these.
Charles Lake.
Had knee surgery, so wobbling. Yeah, my name is Charles Legg. I live at 2576 Lakewood Drive. I'm a retired fire lieutenant with the Columbus Division of Fire. I'm going to talk a little bit of different topics than I talked at the Planning and Zoning meeting. There's three of them. The fan and fireworks owners have repeatedly been saying this is no different than any other retail store, just like the grocery store, clothing store, no different. In my 30 years as a firefighter for the city of Columbus, I've responded to numerous fires in smaller retail type buildings, clothing, groceries, as I mentioned. These fires, while dangerous, are fundamentally different than you face with a store that is selling fireworks. When we arrive on the scene of a typical store, a retail store, we usually enter it with our fire hoses and we put the fire out within 15 minutes or less. Many of you have probably seen the YouTube video of the fire down in Florida. By the time the fire crews arrive, which isn't very long, in Columbus the response times is 5 minutes or less is what we try and stick to. The building was fully involved with fireworks flying and igniting around the property. They were exploding. At that time, firefighters went into what we call defensive mode, which we also call surround and drown. And you can see that very clearly in the video. We pour thousands of gallons of water onto the building in hopes of extinguishing the fire that's burning within the building. That contaminated water has to go somewhere. It goes into the storm sewers. Where do the storm sewers dump the water? Into our ravine. Where does the ravine go? Into the lakes that's behind us. So I'm saying that this is not a typical retail store. And I think that was mentioned earlier. It isn't. Otherwise, you wouldn't have all the codes, regulations in place by Ohio. Second, the Phantom Fireworks owners state that the store will be a state-of-the-art extinguishing system, which is great. It's a quenching system, and that's better than no system. However, any system is still only as good as its ability to work. The best systems usually frequently fail due to human error, and engineers in their testing often do not consider this. The Boeing 787 hatch door accidents, the autopilot accidents, and most recently the International Space System problems, unfortunately all under Boeing's control. Not to mention the dozens of aircraft accidents and train derailments across the United States that occur every year, despite the fact there are safety systems in place.
Time.
Pardon?
Time.
Oh, that's fine, oh, okay. So
Thank you.
hopefully it'll work. I'll be here to remind you.
All right, we have Rick Coxtetter. We pause it every time.
At the PNC meeting, Chatfield stood up, and we were very worried about the value of their house, and like a lot of us, they're thinking ahead. At some point soon, they're going to have to go to something like assisted living or something like that, and they are looking at selling their house, obviously. Does this go up at all? This one? Yes. Okay, thank you. Looking at selling their house, but they didn't think they'd get the value out of it. It was very good. Unfortunately, that opinion is well founded. There are 5 studies I found, and I believe there are others. A study by the University of California, Berkeley, was published in the Journal of Food and Economics, analyzed the impact of proximity to high-risk businesses such as fireworks stores on property values. And the researchers found that properties within 1,000 feet of such businesses experienced a reduction of between 5 and 10% of their value. They live right behind this building. A study conducted by the University of Illinois found that homes exposed to consistent noise pollution, even if it's periodic, such as New Year's and around July 4th, experience a 7 to 12% decrease in value. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners conducted a study in 2023 indicating that approximately 12% of private property owners facing difficulties in obtaining adequate coverage, reflecting a broader trend of increased difficulties securing coverage in such businesses. And I should say, they get coverage, it's just more expensive. The Insurance Research Council also reported in 2022 that neighborhoods experiencing higher claim rates due to nearby high-risk businesses had premiums adjusted upwards 10 to 25% because of the increased risk of fires. The Insurance Information Institute reported in 2021 roughly the same thing. Okay, well, I was kind of curious. Okay, they say 1,000 feet. What does 1,000 feet mean? Well, it goes from 2025 Jordan Road, where the Chatfields live, out to 2588 Jordan Road. It covers Wildwood Road out to 2540. It covers most of Westbridge and most of Elmhurst. That's 1,000 feet. So that's the group of people that they accept and they expect some change in the value of their houses. Is that 3 minutes? Thank you. Okay, so that went off from that. As many of you know, I was the fire chief. And I had a very close relationship with the police. And something they told me several times kind of stuck. And if you'll excuse me, they said in their parlance that they're hard asses, because they know what's out there and they want it to stay out there. Well, the problem, of course, is that if we have a fireworks store in the village, that turns that policy on its head. And I would submit that the reason why Tony Southland signed my petition banning the sale of fireworks is that conditions is still true. And finally, I went down to the city store. I walked in and I recorded off to the...
That's time.
All right, thank you.
He has an additional 3 minutes.
Or we do different conditions?
No, there's too many people that want to talk today. We still have, we're down to 13 minutes and I still have at least 5 people that want to speak.
I'll yield my time to Rick to continue.
And who are you?
Kelly Hagan.
I don't have you even marked. You're not even marked. I'm saying I still have, you're not marked and I still have multiple people that want to speak. And we're not trying to be difficult, but we already, this is council rules.
Just this year.
And I'm just like sitting here. Jelena.
Good evening, guys. I'm Jelena Tischer. And I'm going to raise my voice today to ask the council to either stand with the members of the village and Planning and Zoning Commission and disapprove phantom fireworks application for conditional use at the building at 5400 Cleveland Avenue. Thank you. Thank you very much. Or what's the word? Put the meeting aside right now and come back so that we can have some additional time, because from the 14th of August to now, including some of the information I couldn't even get up on the website. So what I want to talk to you about is what I talked to village personnel back in August of 23, and that has to do with retail and the neighborhood commercial district. Number one, I ran a conditional use for 25 years, so I had this and worse, absolutely. And a conditional use is something that, if it works, we can meet the conditions. It's something that I'm not opposed to, including the use of fireworks, which we never made a thing about it. So, you know, I don't care if people want to let off fireworks during a certain time, as long as they do it appropriately. But what I want to tell you is that somehow between August and now, you guys sat back on your property and let it sit. Maybe based on something you heard from the township, but I know in my own case, township told me one thing, district attorneys told me one thing, you know, county, I mean, everybody told me something. I knew because mine was something that went from conforming to non-conforming, and I was able to overcome the conditions that they were asking. Retail use, and specifically what it says in our code, is that any retail store, personal services or business or professional offices not specifically listed shall be considered conditional uses and may apply for such use subject to approval. I will say that also in the code it says 123202 conditional uses A. It reads in part that the reason it's here is to is necessary to control such uses upon review and approval by the P&Z. The P&Z did not approve it. Permitted uses, consumable goods, they went 1 through 10, and it said specifically. So when it was talking about retail uses and a neighborhood commercial use, it specifically said these things, which, if I can bear with me, you know the 10 things. It was hardware stores, grocery stores, meat and fish markets, fruit stores, vegetable markets, candy, nut, confectionery, dairy, retail, drugstores, proprietary liquor stores, and floors, and personal services. So fireworks is not a retail use.
Adam Cost.
Hi, I'm Adam Cost, 2828 Parkland Drive. A few things. I am a double board certified physician and I'm licensed in the state of Ohio in addition to 29 other states. As far as the traffic impact study, you know, any scientific study has to be, you know, have good data and be generalizable to the conditions that are, you know, that you're applying it to. And, you know, I agree that the traffic impact study was done according to, what was recommended in the guidelines, but I don't think it's really generalizable to the dates and times that we're discussing, as well as to the geography, the fact that we are in an urban environment, that we're at the end of a dead-end street, that we have a very busy thoroughfare. It's just not, you're comparing apples to oranges, and it's not really generalizable. Our street and the street adjacent Jordan Road suffers from terrible traffic whenever there is any kind of backup around that area. It's people speeding down, endangering our children, coming back around. That's one part that I want to discuss. The other thing is, I do want to also discuss that fireworks are dangerous. There were close to 10,000 reported injuries related to fireworks in 2023, according to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And the CPSC has also said that over the past 15 years, fireworks injuries have been increasing on average about 561 per year as a general trend. I think, we've heard a lot of lip service that fireworks are safe, but they're not. And the whole idea that this primarily affects young people and children, that those greater than 50% of the injuries are people younger than 24 years old, the fact that there's increasing over the past year number of fireworks injuries of children and adolescents. I think it's something that just needs to be said and needs to be emphasized. Fireworks are dangerous. To say otherwise is just, is just false. Thank you.
Craig Buckingham. Tony, you're our last one anyways. Craig, are you sure you don't? Because we have 7 minutes. And Tony has enough time for his too.
Hold on.
We've got plenty of time. Well, she's the one. I'm done, since you're our last person, so.
Tony Benedetti, 2937 Maryland Court. I've been coming before this council now for 15 years, pointing out the mistakes that have been made in code enforcement. And this is just another one in a long list that I have that I will be submitting to you guys, all the different things over the years. Eric has been behind in the last 4 or 5 years, several different issues. Our office building that we were going to buy on 161, this was Eric's idea. It was probably the most unprofessional thing I saw was at the council meeting when they were introduced to council. Basically, council was blindsided by a special surprise guest, which is the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen a council do. Because you're supposed to have an agenda and say who's going to be there and what they're going to be talking about. But it was a surprise special guest. So the incompetence that's demonstrated by this group is unbelievable. Now, I don't know when Eric told you or why you guys think that this was ever an approved use, and that our code before listed 10 retail businesses that are allowed. And we have every right to limit the types of businesses that we want in our village. And the one problem that I see is valid, the biggest one that's valid, is the traffic and the safety concerns. Because I don't care what traffic reports you guys have or what your opinions are about the amount of traffic that's going to come to us. If you look at where the closest fireworks store is up in Mount Gilly or Moringa, and then down in Grove. And if you look at the vast area that has no fireworks, we will be the closest to a bunch of people. So all your projections are just guesstimates. So all you guys need to worry about is that this is a safety issue in many different respects, and it shouldn't be permitted. It's not the kind of business that we want in our village. You have the right to do that. The other thing that hasn't been brought up is that we recently had to start paying Columbus for our fire protection. And we're stuck with it. And I don't think you guys should do this until you find out if that will affect our cost of fire protection. You know, because this is going to be, I think, in this spite country, the first fireworks store that is 50 feet away from a residential property. I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
Thank you.